Oscar Bevis, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Bivol here in San Diego, California, for a brilliant fight this Saturday. I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Mannix. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing excellent, man.
Good. I'm going to jump straight into this fight. It was meant to be the trilogy between Chocolatito and Estrada, but I can't sneer my nose at the replacement. Such a good fight, isn't it?
Yeah, it might even be a better fight. And that's no disrespect to Juan Francisco Estrada. Like everybody, I was looking forward to completing the trilogy there. But to have a young star from 112 in Martinez, who has become a knockout artist, step up on a month's notice to take on Chocolatito, it's the kind of stuff, legends are made of. And look, about a month ago, we just saw kind of the smaller scale version of this. We saw Bam Rodriguez move up in weight to take on Carlos Cuadras, and that worked out brilliantly for Bam Rodriguez. Chocolatito's a different kind of challenge. He is elite, but I like that Martinez is willing to take that same risk.
I was in New Hampshire for his last fight, and he's a crazy character, and he sort of brings that same energy into the ring. That night, I think he kind of showed why he's exciting because, even Eddie said there was a lack of defence, there was a lack of self-care at times, if we're being perfectly honest. But that's exactly why people are going to tune in and watch Julio Cesar Martinez.
He's looking to brawl with you, and it was disappointing that the McWilliams-Arroyo fight ended the way it did. The first round was one of the best rounds of the entire year, both guys getting knocked down. You're kind of anticipating something big happening in that fight, but Martinez is just coming to slug it out with you. Now, the biggest question I have going into this fight is how does Martinez match the output of Chocolatito? Martinez is the kind of guy that his last 6 or 7 fights, he's only thrown about 50 punches per round. He's landed a ton of power shots during that stretch, but he's only thrown 50 or 60 punches, whereas Chocolatito, he's at like 100 plus every single round, even the later rounds of these fights. So Martinez is going to have to bring out the heavy artillery. Like, he is going to have to hit Chocolatito with the kind of stuff he hasn't been hit with since the Sorungvisai fight. Can he do it? He's a big puncher, but it's a big challenge for Martinez.
And in terms of Chocolatito, it's going to be about, essentially, I suppose, trying to school Martinez, isn't it?
Yeah, if I'm Chocolatito, then why listen to me? But if I'm Chocolatito, I want to see what Martinez has got in rounds 6 through 12. The first 6 are going to be back and forth. You're going to absorb some heavy punishment. But when you look at some of the recent fights for Martinez, whether it was Kal Yafai, which kind of redefined him in the aftermath of the Sorungvisai fight, or the Estrada win, or even Israel Gonzalez, a fight before that, he picked up momentum in those later rounds, and he was, for many of them, clearly the better fighter. We don't know if Martinez can go that deep. He's done it. Jay Harris was a recent example of a fight he went deep into, but I think Chocolatito needs to find out what Martinez has got physically when you get into the second half of the fight.
Really looking forward to it, and I'm a betting man, but I'm not putting any money on this because that is how much of a 50-50 I call it. I've got to ask you about yesterday, the Canelo Alvarez press conference. Massive coup for the zone. I'm basically going to, if I get my words out, I'm basically going to start by asking you, did you prefer the Charlo Benavidez option or the Bivol Golovkin trilogy option?
So,
from a fight perspective.
Yeah, in a weird way, and I wrote this at the time, if I was Canelo, I might have considered splitting the baby a little bit because I kind of liked a Charlo fight a little bit more than a Bivol fight. There's no fight I like more than Golovkin. Simple as that. I am among the mainstream fans that need to see this rivalry settled one way or the other. They fought 24 rounds, 24 of them have been close. I need to see a definitive winner out of that. So I wouldn't have faulted Canelo for going Charlo 1, Golovkin 2, and then whatever else he wants to do down the line. But I'm not surprised because, when Canelo keeps talking about how he's focused on legacy, at some point we should start to believe it. He didn't fight Caleb Plant because Caleb Plant had an undefeated record. He fought Caleb Plant because he had the 4th piece of the super middleweight title. Similarly, he's not fighting Dimitri Bivol because Bivol is this well-known guy with an unblemished record, all that stuff. He's fighting Bivol because he has 1 piece of the 175-pound title. And if the Joe Smith-Archer Beterbiev fight goes off this summer, all Canelo has to do would be win 1 more fight after that, and he's the undisputed light heavyweight champion. And that's what he cares about. He cares about his legacy. So while I would have gone maybe both ways on that one, I have no issue with this whatsoever, especially considering, God willing, Golovkin beats Murata, that we will get a settled debate or settled discussion on what Canelo against Gennady Golovkin.
Yeah, I'm sure every single fight fan agrees with you that the trilogy was definite want to see. In terms of the fight with Dimitri Bivol, it is a really interesting fight. We've obviously seen Canelo up at 175. Kind of having to come back down and fight at 168, and then, he's fought at 160 since as well. What do you think that Bivol can give him at 175 that Sergey Kovalev didn't?
So Kovalev threw a lot of jabs in that Canelo fight. The problem with Kovalev's jab was that it wasn't impactful. Like, it wasn't a power jab. Golovkin threw a power jab at Canelo, and that was impactful. Kovalev threw a scoring jab, but Canelo kind of flicked it away, walked through it, blocked a lot of those punches. Bivol, in theory, is a lot more like Golovkin than he is Canelo. When he throws that jab, he throws it with some force behind it. He's going to be able, theoretically, to land that and cause some difficulties for Canelo. And you have to remember, like, when Canelo goes deep into fight, he doesn't blow people out. Like, most of his decisions are relatively close. And even the fight against Kovalev, when that fight was said and done after the knockout, the scorecards were pretty close. So if you're Dimitri Bivol, you've got to come in with full belief that you can land that jab repeatedly and build some kind of lead against Canelo. Canelo starts a little bit slow at times during his fights. And if Bivol can go out and throw that jab with force, he has the potential to give Canelo some problems. But all the guys Bivol has fought have not thrown anything close to what Canelo throws back. The power, the speed.
He's fought a lot of slow starters, isn't he, over the last couple of years?
He's fought a lot of, frankly, nobodies over the last couple of years. I mean, if we're being honest, like Joe Smith was the last quality win on his resume, and after that you got guys like Craig Richards. You've got a whole bunch of guys that aren't anywhere close to Canelo's level, and he struggled in some of those fights at times. Craig Richards was a very close fight when he fought him over in the UK. So, Bivol's got, I think, the skill set to give Canelo some problems. What does he do, though, when there is all that firepower coming back at him? The one thing about Canelo, and only one guy's beaten him, but the only way I think to beat him is to engage with him. The last guy to do that was Gennady Golovkin, and he made it close. Bivol's got to go out and be willing to engage with Canelo if he's going to give himself a chance to win.
You say he's got to go out and engage with him. Do you think perhaps people getting in the ring with Canelo now is one of them reputation precedes him? People they get in and they don't want to engage, and like I said, that is or could be the best manner to approach a fight with Canelo.
Well, I think guys get in the ring with him believing in their game plan. Callum Smith believed in his game plan. Billy Joe Saunders was borderline arrogant about his game plan. But then they get in and they underestimate the speed. They underestimate the power. They underestimate how good defensively he is with his head movement, his ability to block punches from basically all angles. So I think Bivol will learn in the first round if he's in this fight. If you see Bivol come out rounds 1 through 3 and fight off his back foot and not throw right hands behind his jab, it's going to be a wrap. It might be close in the 8th or 9th round, but Canelo's going to find a way to close the show. I want to see if Bivol goes out, stands in the middle of the ring, and trades punches with Canelo, because I think that's the only way anyone can beat him.
One thing that Canelo was kind of getting agitated about yesterday, obviously, done loads of different media scrums, and I know people were throwing him the same questions, was people sort of waiting to fight him, and he was saying, look, earn it. Andre, Charlo, Benavidez, you haven't been picked as such. Earn a fight, go and fight each other. Is that an energy that everyone should sort of replicate? Go out and fight each other. You want to earn the Canelo fight, you two fight, winner, he'll fight you next year.
I've been clamoring for that approach for years now, because everybody wants that Canelo lottery ticket. And look, to their, I don't know if credit's the right word, but Caleb Plant was right, to fight mandatories for 2 years and avoid David Benavidez just so we could cash that $10 million paycheck. Dimitri Bivol did not fight Zurdo Ramirez over the last year or so. Worked out for him, and now he's facing Canelo. So it tends to work, but I like what Canelo has done that's a little bit different now, that may change the calculus a little bit, is that he said to them, look, you ain't getting a fight in May, you ain't getting a fight in September, you're probably not getting a fight in December, and if there is a winner out of Joe Smith-Beterbiev, you're not getting a fight in May of 2023 either. He has basically said, for the better part of the next 18 months, I'm not available. And when I do become available, I want an opponent that has earned the opportunity. And there's no reason they can't. You look at Charlo and Benavidez, they fight under the same promotional banner. They're both PBC fighters. Andrade, I have a soft spot for Demetrius Andrade. I think he's
I was going to come on to it. I know you're Demetrius Andre's #1 fan, yeah.
He doesn't think so half the time. He yells at me when I don't clamor for enough. But like, if Andrade can find a way to get in with Benavidez, that will be a statement win for one of them. These guys effectively have until June of 2023 to establish themselves as the fighter that deserves a Canelo Alvarez fight. If they don't, if they start chasing the Sergey Derevyanchenko's around, the Anthony Durrell's around, that's on them. Canelo shouldn't fight any of them. He should move up to heavyweight and fight somebody at that point, because none of those guys will have earned that opportunity.
Don't put it past him, is what I'm saying. Do not put it past him. Just one more thing on this Canelo situation. Sort of, if you look at Floyd Mayweather and the way financially he changed boxing money made for a reason, the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, when paychecks became, quite frankly, ridiculous. Canelo now, that 160 million, that's like an NFL player's 2-year contract. I mean, there's 6 months of potentially 3 fights. Is Canelo sort of making this era his own and changing the financials in boxing going forward? And potentially, could it even drop down the food chain? Is boxing going to become a big, big money sport again?
It only becomes a big money sport if guys are willing to take on all challenges. And if guys are willing to...
You have to keep the energy Canelo's got in the ring to...
Activity and taking on all challenges. What separates Canelo is, he fought 4 times in 11 months last year, whereas nowadays, you can't get some of these guys in the ring more than once a year. I mean, forget twice a year. A lot of these guys are fighting once a year, and at most, twice a year. Canelo stays in the minds of the public by staying active, and he stays relevant by taking on world champions. Nobody's ever going to be satisfied with Canelo opponents. If he doesn't fight Charlo, it's because, or doesn't fight Bivol, it's because he wanted Charlo, all that stuff. He never gets, he's always going to be criticized for who he steps in the ring with, but he's facing the best, he's facing guys with titles, and he's doing it at a level of activity that we haven't seen since really the days of like Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, guys that would fight 2-3 times per year. In the 1980s, even somewhat in the 1990s. So I hope fighters embrace that. There's a pathway to getting rich and being on the talk shows and being relevant to a mainstream media mass. It's to fight the best fighters. But nowadays, guys are just so determined to protect that zero and so afraid of the ramifications of a loss that they won't do it. That's why we didn't see Jamal Charlo against Demetrius Andrade for like 3 years. More than 3 years, we didn't see that fight. See, now you get me going on Charlo Andrade again, which is like my pet peeve. But if guys will just look at what Canelo's doing and challenge themselves that way, then I think boxing will be in a much better place. Canelo lost to Floyd Mayweather. Did that do anything poor for his career? Did that hurt him one bit? Not one bit. Losses are irrelevant. Challenges matter, and that's what I think Canelo is setting the blueprint for.
All right, just one more thing that I've got to ask your opinion on. Dillian Whyte not showing up to the Tyson Fury press conference. I mean, we know Fury can put a show and a facade on his own. It was hardly like there wasn't much to talk about at the press conference, but when one of the main talking points is that Dillian Whyte hasn't turned up, did you feel some sort of disappointment that we didn't really get to see them go back and forth? Because we know they both got big mouths, and we know it would have been fucking entertaining if he would have turned up.
It would have been fun. In a weird way, that fight got more, at least U.S. attention because Whyte didn't show up. Like, if Whyte had shown up, people would have paid attention and noticed it, but I don't think... Because he didn't show up, everyone was talking about him not showing up and being disappointed he didn't show up and how unprofessional it was that he didn't show up.
I didn't think of the US perspective, so that's actually over here made it sort of increase the profile of the fight.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that fight basically sold out in a day, so it didn't affect ticket sales for that fight. Dillian's going to show up a fight week, and we're going to get the back and forth. We're going to get maybe an altercation on the dais. We're going to get everything we hoped we were going to get. I actually think in a bizarre way, it was better for the promotion of the fight that Dillian didn't show up, because now that's the narrative. Why has Dillian gone quiet? Is he off social media for good now? What's he working on in Portugal as he's in his gym? It creates a level of intrigue around Dillian Whyte that we didn't see. And I'll tell you one other thing. I know for a fact that Top Rank was shocked at how many tickets that fight sold. They did not believe that Tyson Fury was the kind of draw that he turned out to be in England. That's why they went and said, we need 10,000 more tickets for that venue, for that fight. I mean, Tyson Fury has proven to be an enormous global draw in just a short period of time.
And in terms of the fight itself, most people I speak to in the UK, be it trainers, fighters, promoters, sort of have this way of talking about Tyson Fury where he can lose himself a fight and no one can beat him. Is that how you see the fight as well? Because that is kind of the energy in the UK that only Tyson can really lose a fight for himself because he is just that good of a heavyweight.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. He'd have to go into the fight really out of shape, and he's already kind of talking about coming in like as the heaviest heavyweight of all time. So I don't know what kind of conditioning he's going to come into the fight in. I don't think anyone in the heavyweight division is on his level. I've never seen a boxer that size do what he can do. He's obviously still susceptible to getting hit and getting knocked down. Deontay Wilder proved that. Dillian Whyte, big left hook. We know that can come out of nowhere. Ask Derek Chisora about that. But it's hard to get in on Fury, and even when he gets knocked down, he gets back up again. So it would be the kind of fight that I think Tyson Fury would have to lose more than Dillian Whyte can win.
All right, Chris, thank you very much for giving me some of your time. Obviously, going to enjoy the rest of the fight. We can look forward to a brilliant, brilliant fight on Saturday. And yeah, thank you, mate.
My pleasure. Anytime.